All right. Hey, welcome back to the Go for CEO channel. This is John the Bomb. Building others means business. And every time we bring on someone, it's someone that's bringing a ton of value, a lot of wisdom in what they've done with their entrepreneurship journey. So, nonetheless, we have a great guest today, Michelle Sharritt with Q Camp, founder, co-founder with her husband, and they're setting the world on fire. They're doing a lot of great things. They're doing the networking events. There's a lot of things that are going on around their atmosphere of the business model. So, Michelle, thank you so much for coming on the Go for CEO channel and being a local business owner that really is making a difference. So, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm really excited to talk to you and, for you to learn a little bit more about what we do.
Yeah, yeah, Q Camp. It's such a cool name. Kind of leaves a little bit of a thinking like, oh, Q Camp, what is that? And those are the good ones, right? Those are those
Yep.
good names and good brands that kind of keep you thinking. So, without any further ado, I mean, tell us kind of what was the ideation side of it. We always like hearing in the Go for SEO community what made this person think of this business, and then we'll have a conversation from there.
Yeah, for sure. So it's sort of a long story. My husband, Dr. Matthew Sharritt, he got his PhD back in 2008. It was an interdisciplinary PhD, which means it's in different areas of education. So it was in computer science, psychology, information architecture, so how content is presented to someone. Usability was part of that as well. So, what's the overall user experience? So, whatever we're looking at, and other areas too. So, we thought that he was going to go into the gaming industry world where he would work with video game companies to make their video games more fun and engaging, more intuitive, so that when people came to play the video game, they knew what to do right away. They didn't have to watch a tutorial. So, we actually went to a video game conference at Michigan State. It was a conference where a lot of professors were there, some video game companies, and we were sitting there, and the keynote speaker was from Electronic Arts. EA. And so we were listening to him, and he said, yeah, well, we're out in California and we had a usability company help us with our video game. And it was called Spore. And Spore was just a video game where you were a germ on a planet and you were trying to survive, and the game completely flopped. But he said, we paid this company in San Francisco over $1 million to help us make this game a winner. And he's like, it didn't work. And so back in 2008, the words like usability, user friendly, nobody heard of these words yet. And so Matt and I were sitting there and we looked at each other and we're like, EA paid these people $1 million and the game flopped. Like, holy crap, like we could do way better. Matt's got his education background, his computer science background, his PhD. I'm like, oh my gosh, we could totally do better. So we talked to EA afterwards, and we got in and we did a presentation with them. But it was 2008, and that was right when the economy tanked. And so they're like, we don't have the funds to hire you guys. Like, we're sorry. So we were like, we're going to start our own company, and we're going to work with software companies too. It just doesn't have to be video game companies. Software companies need help too. So we started our parent company called Situated Research, and that's our usability firm. So that's where we have PhDs on staff that specialize in usability, and that's with software, video games, and websites. So during that whole economic time in 2008, a lot of software companies too were like, guys, like we'd love to have you, but there's no money. So we kind of revamped ourselves a little bit, just starting out our business. We were like, we need revenue coming in. We were living off of the money that we had saved, and that was starting to dwindle. So we're like, we need money coming in. So that's where we spun off Q Camp. And so Q Camp is our digital marketing firm. That's where we create user friendly websites. So every website project that we work on, we have a PhD expert from Situated Research that assists with that project. So they'll look at the menu navigation of the website, and they'll make sure that the labeling of the pages is labeled in a way where users would be able to find information quickly and easily. There's information architecture involved, so the placement of content, headings, pictures, videos, it all matters.
Cool.
So that's what we do. And then beyond that, we do social media marketing and SEO strategy or search engine optimization. So that way you can get found after we make this great website and we're doing our digital marketing for you, then you can get found. So that was kind of our journey. The name Q Camp came out of social cues, is where we were coming from. So for the Q part, and then the camp part was we have a camp of different services that we provide. So that's where the name came from.
It's interesting. I'm always curious when a company has a message, right, and how they share that message of what their reason for being is, per se, right? Their value proposition. So what lends me to ask is within Q Camp, right? That's a pretty interesting way to kind of attack the market, especially with there being so much competition out there with either
Sure.
web developers or digital marketers, that type of thing. When you guys are sharing your actual value proposition and that first part of, not just thinking about, hey, put up a website like Wix, right, as an example,
Right.
but put up a website with purpose, with thinking about the customer in mind and how to situate the color and the way you said the positioning of everything. I guess what tell us what that process looks like, because I think that seems to be maybe a longer sales cycle, and I may be wrong, but what part of that take us through the journey of the client onboarding with you, gets shown, at those beginning parts.
So a lot of people now, since we've been in business since 2008, it's word of mouth.
Mhm.
Or someone who we built a website for, they see the website and they're like, wow, not only is it aesthetically pleasing, but it also makes sense as someone who comes to the website as a first time user. So that onboarding process, when we get a prospect or a referral, we're doing a discovery call with them. And we're just listening to them. We're listening to what their pain points are for their business. And then we, at the end come in and say, this is how we could help you get rid of this. This is how we can help you with this. But the onboarding process, the way we, distinguish ourselves from our competition is that usability piece. So a lot of web design firms say, "Oh, well, we'll make a user-friendly website for you." And what they mean is that it works. It means that the links work, the forms work. Like, if there's, a login system, it works. That's great. I'm glad the website works. It should work. What we're looking at is as a first-time user, and you come to the website, however you do that, what are you looking for? So when we talk to new clients, we're always like, who are your key stakeholders or who are your clients? The different groups who are going to be coming to your website that would buy from you. And then we kind of come up with those different persona types. And then we're building the website towards them. We want to make sure that every persona type is looked at. And we want to make sure that when they come to the website, let's say it's a medical website. We just recently did a website for a company that sells medical equipment for
Mm.
people who are in their homes and they need medical beds or oxygen or wheelchairs, scooters, whatever. And so there's different stakeholders. There's the people who actually need the equipment. So that's the elderly crowd usually, or the disabled crowd. So those are two different stakeholders. And then we have children of elderly parents. So we have to gear that website towards all three. No matter who comes to that website, they have to be able to find that information quickly, find the information that they need that's important to them, and not give all the information on the website. We want to leave something to the imagination so that they contact you. So that onboarding process really doesn't take that long for us. Usually, after we show them a few examples of the work that we've done, we kind of go through, we have some case studies that we do with them, kind of take them through. They see it right away, they see the value right away. And they'll say, hey, we've talked to other web design companies in the area and they just gave us their spiel and they don't really say how they're going to help me and how they're going to help with my pain points. And the fact that you took the time to learn what they were, and then you address them in this discovery call is impressive in itself. Let's get a proposal. So that's usually how that works.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting because obviously, being established now, a referral comes with a lot of credibility, right?
Mhm.
I would always say there's a business and financial services where they talked about trust and credibility, right?
Yes.
Trust came from that referral source. Credibility is that you're in that business, you're an expert in that business, right? Um, but it's kind of hard doing it at the beginning. So,
Mhm.
and this was probably my bad questioning, but let's go back to the beginning part because I think there's a lot of value in that and how you develop that process, right? Because I'm assuming, at the beginning, even though the PhD was on the staff and your expertise was on the staff, the client didn't know that, right? So
Right.
what are some of the ways that you distinguish that, and set that apart in those beginning days? And then we'll jump back into kind of where we're at today. So.
Yeah, so for sure. So when we get a referral, it is usually from someone who knows, likes, and trusts us.
Mhm.
It's usually through our networking groups, or it's through someone who I've already built a relationship with within the community, or someone that we've built a website with before. I also belong to a referral group too, so they know, like, and trust me. And they usually do a little intro to us before we even set up that discovery call. So that is helpful. We also have marketing materials and things like that that we give to them. We do webinars all the time, so we give those materials to them. So just kind of going through our history, I will do that a little bit, not as at length as I did with you today, but I'll tell them a little bit and just kind of relate to them like, hey, we're an entrepreneur too. We started our own business. This is how we did it. And we've helped this business in the local community. And then that helps as well because they're well-known businesses within the community that they know, and it's people that they know. And so then they're like, okay, and they're like, tell me more. And so it just kind of leads into that conversation and helps out a lot with that onboarding. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're first interacting with a client, it's interesting how every business takes its approach, right? A body
Hmm.
shop could be pretty clear, right? You walk into a body shop, they have the
Right.
machinery, they have a few cars that are already pre and post delivery, right? But when there's an intangible like this that initially is about thoughts, ideas, creation, and then putting it tangibly onto a website and creating it, that's the interesting part, right? Is how you're developing that storyline with that client. So yeah, I definitely appreciate sharing that with the Go for SEO community, right? So tell us, as you started growing Q Camp, you've referenced a few other businesses and networking groups. Was that the approach really to get the marketing out? Because obviously, being a digital marketing company, people are probably like, well, how are they marketing, right? Their business. So
Right.
so tell us those beginning portions, right? Maybe that first 6 to 18 months that you guys were in business.
So obviously, we built a website. That was the first thing that we did. Came up with our business cards. And then in 2008, if you remember, that was right when LinkedIn started.
Mm,
And so you started, every professional was like, I need to be on LinkedIn. I need to be on LinkedIn. And everybody's like, what the heck is that? Matt was on LinkedIn and he's like, did you know that we could create a group on LinkedIn? And I'm like, what's that? And so he's like, he explained it to me and he's like, let's start the Naperville Business Network. And I was like, oh, that's a catchy name. It was just a way for us to organize businesses on LinkedIn and be able to set up coffee meetings. That's all it was supposed to be. And there was no strategy involved, to be completely honest, no strategy involved at all with LinkedIn because nobody really knew what LinkedIn did yet. It was like people's resumes were on there and you kind of talked a little bit. I don't even think messaging was available yet.
mm,
And so we started this group and it started to grow and grow with more businesses that were in Naperville. And so we were like, oh, this is really cool. And so we were connecting with people, and then my husband's like, well, we work in Oak Brook too. We work in all the suburbs. Why don't we create groups for all the different areas of the Chicagoland area to keep us organized? And that's really what it was all about. And so it was working kind of like our CRM system, if you
mm.
will. And so then, like, I think it was 3 years before COVID, we were like, all right, Naperville grew to be the largest LinkedIn group on LinkedIn. It still is.
Wow.
Yeah, and we were like, wow, this is a lot of people. Like, I can't talk to all these people. What would be a great way to talk to all of these people? So I started to do webinars and things like that, and that was helpful to get new clients. But I was like, I want to meet people in person. So what we started to do was we would meet the first Thursday of every month at the Naperville City building. I rented a room for $30. I had a speaker. I was like, well, there has to be some value here. So I was like, I went on to the Naperville Chamber website, looked at their speakers bureau. I picked somebody who was a neighbor of ours. Said, would you just come and talk about a business topic so that way they see value in it? But I get to network. That was the whole point. So we started doing this and we started doing it the first Thursday of every month, and we did it for a year. And then people are like, you should monetize this. So we're like, okay. And then the speakers started charging us too. It wasn't free anymore. So it was like, I got to pay for them too, and the room, and the donuts, and the coffee. So I'm like, yeah, let's start charging, $20. So that's what we did. And then it was booming. I had, speakers every week. It was really good. But then I had people coming up to me saying, this is a great format, but it doesn't allow for that much time for networking, which was true. We would meet for an hour. We'd have a speaker talk for 20, 30 minutes. It would always go over with questions. So then we were only networking for maybe 15, 20 minutes. And I was like, yeah, I agree. So then COVID hit. And so we were like, all right, we're online. But during that time that we were online, we actually started to build a membership model. We thought about doing happy hour events after COVID was over, and everything opened up again. And so that's kind of how that streamlined. But that marketing piece, like we had no strategy, to be completely honest, no strategy whatsoever. And just starting those groups on LinkedIn helped us to organize ourselves, the website. I would start connecting with people on LinkedIn and just sending them a little spiel about us. And then saying, we'd love to take a look at your website. Here's our link. And then also during that time, we started doing our free usability report. So that's where we'll look at a website and we'll do a 15-minute video, and we'll look at a few areas of your site. Like we'll look at your homepage and we'll look at one internal page. So it
Mm.
kind of gave them a little snippet into what have they done great about their website and what needs some improvement. But we wouldn't tell them everything. And so we still offer this. And so that helps to get new clients in as well, because they're like, oh, I did this really well on my site, but I need work on this. What else do I need work on? Like, I need more. And so then that leads into new clients as well. So that was our marketing strategy.
There's a
Lack
gentleman
of.
taught me a phrase called controlled chaos, right?
Mhm.
Or and that's a great segue into, right, Go for CEO community. You see a business owner that's had a lot of success in Michelle and her husband. They formulated an idea, and they got messy, right? They just
Mhm.
started doing things. They created kind of a ancillary business, but not really at the beginning. It was just a way to attract people, and getting a room at the Naperville municipality, and then
Yeah.
attracting business owners. And then they got this thing called LinkedIn, and it started creating a spider web effect around it. And guess what? I mean, it's the biggest group out there now. It's crazy. But that all fed Q Camp, right?
Yes.
And that's the intriguing part, is that you could take those ancillary things that you were doing as activities and broaden those into really powerful, really lead management, right? And lead sourcing and those types of things. So really, really cool stuff. So I guess, my next question is, you and Matt, go on this journey, you start doing these things, you develop these networks, I'm assuming there's a point that you say to yourself, this is a lot,
Mhm.
and we need some help. So,
Yes.
scaling wise, at what point was it? 18 months, 36 months? Could you give us a sense of where you thought, okay, hey, here's where I'm going to bring some talent? It could have been either as independent contractor or as an employee, but give us a sense of that journey as well.
So I will tell you, when we first started out with our parent company and Q Camp, we thought we need a sales team. We need a team bringing in business. And so we hired 6 contractors, 1099 contractors. We trained them all about usability and web design and social media marketing because they didn't have a background in it. And they were hitting the ground running, but they weren't selling,
Hmm.
none of them. We would do RFPs, so requests for proposals that would come out on the internet. And we had one guy who was just consistently doing that and writing proposals, and that's how we were getting projects in. So the other 5 salespeople were not hitting the ground running. And the reason being is because we were sort of naive at the time. This is back in 2008. We were offering a base pay for our contractors. So they would get a certain amount of money a month, no matter what. And then we were giving them a really nice commission structure, but they weren't selling anything. So that was when the economy was bad, right? In 2008. So what they were doing is they were collecting their base pay and they weren't selling anything. And we had a 6 month, I think it was a 6 month minimum at the time. And so
Hmm.
after that 6 months, we were like, guys, like we've dealt out all this money. We're done. Like we're not getting any return on investment. And then I got a nice little call from the unemployment office of Illinois. And so apparently they were collecting unemployment and collecting our base pay and not doing the work.
Hmm.
That lesson cost us about $70,000. And just the one guy who was doing those RFPs, that's what was feeding our business at the time. And so we kept him on for a while. And then we started to learn about RFPs and stuff. And Matt, with his PhD, he's a writer, obviously. So he was like, I can take that over. And then the gentleman actually retired because he was an older guy. So that's kind of like what happened. Since then, we thought we need, so the whole time we were like, no salespeople, no salespeople. Like we got burned, like we're good. So it's just Matt and I doing it. And then we would bring in contractors to help, with the web development. And we have content writers and marketers, and everybody's a contractor now. But as far as the sales team, no, because then we tried to do it again. I think it was before COVID hit, like the year before COVID. And we brought in 3 people, and the same thing happened again.
Hmm.
And I think it was because we used the same structure and we did that base pay and we were doing commission. And they're like, this is just really hard. And the sales cycle for getting someone to even say, hey, yeah, do my website is a long one. And I'm like, no, it isn't. I'm like, it takes me maybe a week or two. I get a decision and they're like, what's going on? So I was trying to figure it out with them. Turned out they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing either. So it's very hard with contractors. You really have to be a good manager. You have to be someone who's overseeing them because they're not working in your office, they're working from home. And if they see an angle where they can collect something but not do the work, they're going to do it. It's just the way humans are, unfortunately. So we learned again. And so now, yeah, the networking groups are feeding us with clients. I belong to a referral group that's feeding us with clients. And just going to these events, these networking events, and meeting people every week, like you said, where there is a point where you get a little overwhelmed. And so, when was that? I will tell you last year, actually. So we've been in business since 2008. And as you know, being an entrepreneur, it's a roller coaster ride. It's up and down, up and down. COVID didn't help. So yeah, we're bringing in enough projects and we're busy. But we just ramped it up, I would say, last year, the beginning of last year. So now we have clients who are doing monthly retainers. They're doing social media marketing every month. So that's revenue that we can definitely consistently depend on. And we're still bringing in those big website projects as well. But now is the time where we're thinking we need to get more contractors to help us. So we're working on that. And yeah, how it goes with the networking groups, though, we are getting very overwhelmed and need to bring some help in. So if you know anyone who can help run events, that would be awesome. So we have 7 networking groups now. And Windy City in Chicago is just starting next week, Thursday, March 20th. We're
Mm.
going to be at Burning Bush Brewery in Chicago. We already have 50 people signed up. So it's going to be a big event, but now we're doing a networking event once a week.
Hmm.
And I think I told you we have 9-year-old twins. We have a household, we have 2 businesses, 7 networking groups. So, yeah, we're getting overwhelmed. So, we have to figure out how to scale, who are the proper people to bring in. And that's all a big task. That's an overwhelming task for 2 people, to look at each other and be like, we need to do this now. We need to bring in a project manager for these projects. I can't consistently be doing that. So, as a small business, you learn to scale. And I think there is that time where you're like, we have to do this and we have to do this now or we're going to burn out. And we definitely don't want to do that. And we want to keep the momentum. You'll know, like, it's just a gut feeling. You get that little intuitive feeling where it's like, this is great and I'm glad, but now is the time. Like, if we don't scale up and we don't bring in more people, we're going to burn out. And we don't want that to happen.
Yeah, and your expertise at what you specifically do has obviously been nurtured over 16, 17 years, right? So it seems like the system of developing the site, the networking group, those things are all kind of moving along well. They have, consistent growth in those types of areas, right? But it seems like the infrastructure of the team and to be able to truly scale, right, become an enterprise per se, from a small business owner to a real, you know, flourishing, multi-layered hierarchy organization. That's the tough part, right? So it's transitioning, and you know when you take multiple businesses like you have, right, and multiple sectors that all kind of come to one hub of doing business, there has to be, primarily leadership in each component, right? And then you, as the business owner, instead of working in the business, you're working on the business and controlling the levers that you're being pulled, right? So it's an
Exactly.
interesting conversation. Let me ask you something. It's very interesting because I deal with a lot of business owners, in my non-YouTube life. I'm a commercial banker, so I typically deal with $5 to $100 million companies. But I will bring on, let's say, a $2 million company or a million, just across the path, or there's even startups because we have an SBA program. But it's interesting because of my prior life of being a business owner. I sold my business in '09, so we were kind of crossing paths. You guys were starting. I had sold my business in '09. I always feel like the small business owner, and small meaning like 10 million and below. So
Right.
from 0 to 10 is typically small in America. Um, there's a challenge of your talent is so good at what you specifically do that it's hard to transfer that and then also be able to grow outside of you, right? So
Mhm.
there's an interesting component of, call it consulting or coaching. What have you and Matt thought about, or maybe you have over the last, maybe few years, anything that might give you an edge with someone that you're talking to outside of the, atmosphere that you're in to give you a different perspective and in different areas of how you would do things?
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of these podcasts lately.
Mhm.
I just did one 2 weeks ago on Digital Trailblazer. They're
Mhm.
out in LA. And so they have different podcasts for different groups of businesses. And so I was on there about 2 weeks ago and they were interviewing me. And at the end, they said, have you ever thought about teaching? And so I said, no. And they said, yeah, maybe doing like, different seminars or workshops or something like that to share your expertise with others and to gain new clients and to get the word out about what you do. And so I was like, yeah. So Matt and I have thought about that. That's definitely an avenue that we could go into. As far as scalability goes, I talk a lot with my referral group. So we have one person per category. We meet once a week. And so they're a really good support system for me. We're all at different stages in our businesses. and they've, some of them have grown to be over 5 million in revenue a year, and some are small. And so we all share our experiences with one another, and we all help one another. So they've come up with some great ideas as well too to help us out with this part of our journey right now.
Hmm, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think there's an interesting part of, once you cross a certain barrier of business, especially with, you know, two co-founders, right? And you guys, I'm assuming, let me ask you this actually, it's an interesting part. What have you, what are your distinctive, I guess, roles that you guys do? So between yourself and Matt, how have you developed and has it changed throughout the 17 years of where you spend your day-to-day time in?
Yeah, so actually, I would say the networking piece, we're both heavily involved.
Okay.
We're both having meetings, we're both, doing that piece, the sales part. As far as like the project management part, that's always been me. We really haven't changed our roles at all. During this whole journey, I've done the project managing of the projects. I've also done the weekly check-in meetings with all of the clients. The final presentation we're both on. Matt is doing a lot of the networking as well. And he's also doing a lot of project management too, but he's more of the tech guy. So he's got that programming background. He knows, programming languages, he knows software languages. So he's more hands on those projects. And then he's got that usability background that we tap into. So that's like his piece. And all the writing he does. So all our proposals he writes. And so we have now a template that we use, and we could just pull in pieces for clients, but he wrote all of that. So we haven't really changed our roles much. We've stayed, separate, like as far as the project management I'll do, and he'll be more hands-on. But the sales part, the networking part, we're both doing, and managing the team and all of that, I'm still doing. So haven't really changed in the last years, but definitely, maybe in the future we will. We just try to play off of each other's strengths, our backgrounds. My background is in psychology.
Okay.
So that really helps me when I'm doing project management or I'm working with clients, especially those discovery calls and kickoff calls, just learning more about their business and what they do, and what services they're trying to offer and help them with their business development. My background's also in business, so that helps as well.
No, that's interesting. What it made me think of is, okay, well, if their roles haven't really changed, right? And you had these two kind of cycles in your business where you brought in some business development people and it didn't quite work out just yet, right? And you're still perfecting that, probably, you probably look at maybe as you scale to try that again in a different way. What has been the engagement part with your contractors, right? Because you're still doing volume
Mhm.
and you're still doing business. So it's interesting, if you're on the project side and your husband's on kind of the ideation and creativity and you said usability, right?
Mhm.
Where have you then seen consistency with your independent contractors that are helping you build these websites and do all the back end and the maintenance and the hosting and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, you definitely have to stay connected, obviously, because we're not at the same office. Everybody's working from home. So it is hard, and you have to somehow try to build a culture with them as well and build that relationship too. Our contractors we've been working with for years. So we have a set of web developers that we'll use, and we'll go ahead and kind of go cycle through them and say, hey, we've got this project coming up. If it's your expertise, would you like to do it? Do you have time to do it? Because they're doing their own side stuff, right? They are freelancers. So the way that we build culture is we invite them to our networking events, and that helps them to get business too. So we'll see a lot of them come, and it's a way for us to connect as well. And obviously, we've connected outside of that as too, because we're trying to build a relationship. They know us, we know them, we trust each other, right? And I think that that's important, and that's what's consistently been working for us. When we work on projects together, when I'm project managing, like I'll have them on those calls weekly with the client. And so that's putting us together as well. And that's putting us in front of the client too to explain, hey, this is the work that we did this week. This is the work that we're going to do next week for you. So trying to create a culture and trying to create a relationship with contractors when you don't work in the same office space is somewhat difficult. But those networking events help us because we're like, guys, free ticket, just come. And we get to hang out and get to learn more about each other. But our contractors aren't new anymore. Like we've been working with them for at least 10 years plus now. So that also helps. We've got our core. But certainly as we grow, we want to bring on new people as we're going through that interviewing process right now. We're looking for certain personalities. We're looking for those people that we click with. We're not just doing a Zoom call with them and saying, read us your resume. Okay, you fit all the criteria. Let's hire you. We're meeting them in person. We're having coffee. We're going out to dinner. We're going through that process to see if we jive together.
Mhm.
Matt and I, we're pretty personable people. We're pretty laid back. As long as you do what you need to be doing, we're happy with you. We're going to have a good time. So just keeping those relationships going and making sure that we stay on top of it too. There's a few contractors in the past where we were like, oh, we have this project coming up. And they're like, I don't have time to do it. And they kept passing on projects because they were so busy. And then,
Mhm.
at that point, like, okay, this isn't going to work. Like, we need people that we can go to, that have that availability. So yeah, just working on those relationships is important.
Interesting. So, and let me, I guess, go a little bit deeper on this specific topic because I love that you shared, the engagement, and then we'll go through the CEO process, right? Client experience, engagement, and operational excellence. But um, when you think about the contrast of having a contractor that also is doing their own thing, and then
Mhm.
you're slotting in hours of projects within their component of their life, and then a W-2 income, right, or an employee that bring them in and where they have to be kind of under your guidance, right? What's
Mhm.
been that aspect? Is the industry more of a independent contractor system and process? Or is it that you've kind of had your hand in three or four different things that have developed this ecosystem that you now have, and now you're looking at possibly bringing in kind of some internal hierarchy functional people?
Yeah, definitely in this industry, everybody's pretty much a freelancer
Mm,
or contractor. And so you have to work with that. There are bigger firms, web design firms that, have the office space and they have those dedicated employees that are there working on projects. But we've partnered with a few of them that are big here in Naperville and the local area, and they're now downsizing. They've
mm,
figured out that they don't need all those people. They don't need the office space. So the industry is changing, but I feel like for the most part, it's freelancers and contractors. And so that's just how we've worked. That's what's worked. I don't foresee bringing on employees ever. The contractor thing is just working. It's been working since 2008. We have a really cool content management system that we use. So it gives us all tasks. And as we complete those tasks for a project, it checks it off. So our project management meetings, like we've kind of honed in our process. And so that's really helped just to guide the website projects, social media projects, whatever we're doing, and keeping everybody on task, keeping the deadlines, and just making sure that the project runs smoothly. So definitely the industry is full of contractors for sure. And you got to manage those contractors and just having a really good manager who's doing it and who has done it for years and knows what works. I used to have projects where I would have 6 people from the company, the client side, that would be on these weekly calls. And they say two maid cooks in the kitchen. So I learned very quickly they would be on the call and they'd be arguing about decisions that needed to be made. And I'm like, this is a complete waste of my time. This is a complete waste of your time as well. So now
Mhm.
what I do is I'm like, no more than two people from your side, no more than two people from our side. And any decisions that need to be made, you need to make that before our project management call and come with the decision. So
Mhm.
we've learned what works, what doesn't work, and refined it throughout the years.
Oh, great directives, right? You
Yeah,
start to learn how to, move your client in a direction. In commercial lending, it could be interesting because there's a attorney, there's typically a commercial real estate agent, there's, obviously a title company as an example in the specific buying space, right, of it. Or when you're buying a business, there's a lot of complexity to that with a broker and all these types of things to do it. So I tend to use that approach where I've had some master plan of here's the flow, right? And then I direct you, all right, here's the next step. It's almost like you're putting the basically the process or the street in front of them so they could just start walking, right? The sidewalks.
exactly.
Neat. Nate, well, awesome, awesome. I know it, we've really enjoyed here being, spending some time with you, and learning from the LinkedIn process and how you were kind of on that journey with LinkedIn, and then creating Q Camp and all that stuff. One of the last parts before we go into CEO, which is client experience, engagement, and operational excellence. I'm curious, just being the commercial side, lending side, funding, right? You mentioned you
Mhm.
have twins, right? So
Yes.
if they're 9, you had them around 8 years into the business, right?
Mhm.
Um, Obviously, you've kept it lean and mean. You had some adventures of doing some, salespeople that came into the organization, but for the most part, like you said, the industry is very independent contractor oriented. But hey, besides, you know starting your business, you have to make money, right? So
Right.
what were some of the early stages funding? I think I heard something like maybe you had some savings that you started with the
Yes.
business with. And then tell us the journey about how you were able to go through that and then have kids, have a little bit of a disruption in time wise, probably, right? Because
Yes.
obviously you can have kids and still work probably for a while. What did that look like, and how did you manage your funds and the cash flow?
Yeah, certainly. So when we first started out, I was the HR director at a local hospital here in Chicago. So I had an income coming in. We had a family emergency that happened within our family, and I had to quit my job.
Mm,
And that was right when Matt got his PhD. And so we went to that gaming conference and we figured out that we were going to start our own business. And so we kind of looked at each other like, okay, I just finished my PhD, which when you're doing a PhD, you're not working.
mhm,
You're working full time on the PhD. So he didn't have a job and I just left my job. And so we had savings. And so we're like, we're just going to live off this for right now, until we build up the business. And then the economy tanked. Like, I think it was like 3 months after we started. And
mm,
so we're like, oh, geez, great. So we had stocks and things like that invested. So we started uninvesting some things. And we were just telling friends, we're like, hey, we're building websites, we're doing this. Do you know anyone? We went to the Naperville Chamber and we're like, we're just starting out. Do you know anyone who needs a website? And so we kind of got in like right away with a bunch of big projects,
mm,
that we just like squirrels stored away that money, into our savings and built that up for the next 6 months. And that worked for us. We were able to stay alive on that for a while. And then the economy, did its thing. And we thought, hey, this is a great time to bring in salespeople, right? And we went through that process and lost out on a lot of money. But that one sales guy who was doing those, our RFPs for us,
right, mhm,
those RFPs, I mean, are huge projects.
mhm,
And those people who are putting them out were government projects.
mhm,
So you can imagine. So we just stockpiled, those funds and obviously paid for our expenses that we had out of that. But that really helped to guide us. Our industry and those RFPs just really helped us like during that time financially. And we had a good savings too that already built up, so that was helpful as well. We've never had to have funding. We've never had to ask for a loan. When we had the twins, our family assisted us. They helped us out big time. And so that was helpful. But yeah, like you said, like, yeah, having twins, like that took some time from work. Obviously, we weren't doing sales, we were doing twins. And we definitely weren't doing any networking or anything like that. Our family's out of state, so at the time, so it was hard to
Mhm.
juggle all of that. And then I think once they were like 3 years old, we started to get in the rhythm of things. I mean, when they were little, like one or two, we were getting projects here and there, word of mouth stuff. And so that was helpful too. But yeah, and then COVID happened. And then during COVID, we still were getting projects because I think of the networking groups doing everything on Zoom. We were still meeting. I was doing like little happy hours on Zoom to bring people together, like bring your favorite drink. Doesn't have to be alcoholic, coffee, whatever you want to bring. And let's talk about it. And let's, talk about your favorite things and about your business and how are you getting through COVID right now. And I think that connection and connecting with people felt familiar with us, they felt comfortable with us, and they were like, I really need a new website, but obviously, like right now, like I don't have the funds to do it. Could you just help me out? And we did do that. We did a few projects like that. And then once we got out of COVID and everybody, was face to face again and they were selling their offerings, they back paid and they paid those projects,
Mm,
which
okay.
was nice.
Yeah.
So there's that trust factor again. And so we do that with our clients all the time. But yeah, and then since then, the business has just been ramping up and up and up. So we've never had, I mean, we've struggled. Obviously that entrepreneurial roller coaster ride I always talk about, there's ups and downs. You get a huge website project and you're like, yay, and then 2 months go by and you're like, nothing. And it's like, oh crap. But you have all that money that you stockpile because when you're a freelancer, contractor, you're independent, that's all for you. Like you don't have to pay anyone. If we had a contractor on a big website, obviously we paid them for their piece, but then we kept the rest, right? We didn't have that overhead. We've kept our overhead low. We work from home. We don't have office space. Everyone works from home. And we were doing that way before COVID. So we've just been used to that. We love it. And so that kept the overhead low big time. And so, yeah, during this whole journey, we haven't had any loans or anything like that. We've just, yeah, I don't know.
No, no, hey, I think bootstrapping is kind of the
Yeah.
common word salad that we use, right, for that opportunity of growing your business, of not necessarily leaning on any capital X, that you need to spend on and stuff like that. But it sounds like you also had great principles before you started your business financially, right? You
Yes.
guys were savers, you were responsible, you obviously probably had good credit, all that type of stuff that allows you to have access to capital, even if you needed to dip into a credit card or whatever. I'm sure those things happened as well. So it's interesting, right? But I guess putting on my commercial lender hat is, one thing that is leverage can help you in different ways, but you have to be strategic about it for sure. So just to do it willy-nilly, hey, I want a $200,000 line of credit because I want to hire 3 people. Well, you learned, you didn't want
Mhm.
to do that after a couple bad experiences. So now you've got your system and your flow, and you may use that 200,000 now if you ever got it for something else, right? For a different
Right.
situation to get into a different marketplace or a new client, you know, area and stuff like that. So really cool stuff. Well, thank you for sharing that too, because it's such a vulnerable state, right? As an entrepreneur, you really feel those ups and downs, right? And then when you have a family, you've got now like two responsibilities. Like they can't just eat peanut butter and jelly all the time, right? These kids need to eat some
No.
nutrients, right? So they're growing. And they're going to school and want to go into sports and all that type of stuff. So really cool stuff. So let's end it with the CEO. So it's client experience, engagement, and operational excellence. I think the only one that really we didn't touch much is on the O, but really high level, 30 seconds. Client experience. What do you think makes QCamp and these other ancillary businesses that really feed QCamp part of the client experience? What would you say?
I would say people gravitate to Matt and I. I don't know if it's our personalities or people just, I don't want to kudo myself and whatever, but we're just kind people. We're good hearted people. When we work on a project, like we go above and beyond, and that shows in our work. And I think people can look at our past work and they just see that. We try to exceed client expectations all the time. We'll say that a project will take 6 weeks and we get it done in 4 weeks.
Mm.
So we want to make sure that the process that we have in place helps to assist in creating those awesome projects for everybody and going above and beyond. But I think just, Matt's a perfectionist. I mean, you have to be to have a PhD. He's a kind hearted person too. And I think that just shows through the projects that we do and the project management that I do. Like, I want to make sure that our clients understand every step of what we're doing. I want them to know that, hey, this is what we're working on this week, and this is what we're going to be working on next week. A lot of web design companies will just build a website, and the client is like, AWOL, for like a month. They're like, I don't know what you guys are doing. I hope you're making my website. So I think just being good, authentic people, it just shows to the public, it shows to our community, it shows to our clients. And I think that that's like, it exceeds everybody's expectations. And I think our clients are very happy because of that. They're working with good people.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, client experience is such a interesting journey that you put them through, right? And then
Yeah.
comes up and how you develop that is also good. I'm sure you've perfected it throughout many years of, ups and downs of knowing what to do better and how this thing didn't go well or what have you, right? So engagement, I'll skip that one because you gave us such a cool interactive engagement with your contractors and bringing them, even for free sometimes to these events, telling them to be interactive with you, that helping them to get business through your own networking events and stuff like that. So I think that's a huge part of it. The last one is operational excellence. I'm assuming throughout 17 years, there's been many variations of new technology that's come out. Obviously, you guys are pioneers on LinkedIn. They should put you guys as one of the pioneers of that. Um, but tell me about some operational tools that you're using, the CRMs that you're using, things that are really over the last 5, 10 years made your lives, easier, faster, better.
Yeah, so as far as CRM systems go, we've run the gamut of them. Like we've gone, we started with Zoho, then Hootsuite, like all these different ones, HubSpot. And so we finally landed on ours that we're using right now, which is Zoho. We went back to it because they refined the system.
Mm.
And now it works for what we're looking for as far as a CRM system goes. As far as web design goes, we use WordPress as our platform, go to choice, because it's what you see is what you get. So we choose the theme, we customize it, we do all the usability work, we build the website, but then we can teach our client how to edit the content, which is so key and important because a lot of clients don't have a monthly budget to have you maintain their website. They want to have their website and they want to be able to edit their address if they move, and
Mm.
not have to call us. There's so many clients that we talk to where they're like, I can't edit my website. I have no idea how to do it. And we're like, what? Don't
Yeah.
worry, you're in good hands. As far as like our financial part, we use QuickBooks. I think a lot of businesses use QuickBooks. Our project management system, we actually are moving. We're in transition right now using a platform called Jira, Jira. And so, kind of with AI too, we're working with coming up with our workflows. So we'll
Mm.
use Chat GPT to do that. So it'll come up with our workflows, our tasks per person. So web developer, content manager, marketer, and then we put it in Jira and it puts all the tasks and assigns them to the proper person, contractor that it needs to go to. And then every week we just check off what we did. So it's good for accountability. It's also good for letting us know where we are within the project. Because when we first started out, I was using Excel
Mm.
and I was coming up with my own spreadsheet. And I'm like, okay, for websites, I need their logo, I need their hosting information, and I just had checked off the box. It was pretty old school. So, yeah, you learn to go with, the market and what's working and what's not. And there's a lot of trial and error as well.
No, I love it. I love it. I think it's interesting. the tools that we use to make our business faster, more efficient, collaborative with clients and contractors and stuff like that. I think it's an interesting time. And you brought up something. I'm just starting to use ChatGPT, and
Mhm.
we actually just got the Microsoft one what the heck, for
Oh,
the bank that we're at. We're using
uh,
some AI things. I forgot what the Microsoft name of it. It's not ChatGPT, but even X, right? Like using
yep.
Grok and all that type of stuff. It'll be very interesting over the next 6 to 12 months. They're saying even faster sometimes that how it's going to revolutionize some things. But really awesome stuff. So Michelle, thank you so much. Obviously we met a few weeks ago. You've really put together something really cool in the networking side, and obviously using QCamp as the base to be able to help people with an actual service and all that type of stuff. So, any last words that you want to share with the Go for CEO community, or things that you would like to direct them, and also tell them, hey, your website and all the things to get a hold of you.
Yeah, for sure. So something that I didn't mention is, owning your own business, there are lots of ups and downs. And just knowing to just roll with those like a roller coaster. If you want to be in business for yourself, you just have to know that that happens. And you have to be able to go through that journey.
Mhm.
And I would also say taking risks as a small business owner. So, when we had our twins and business was low and it was during COVID, like we could have just put our hands up and said, all right, we're just going to get regular jobs and throw the business away. And we didn't do that. We pivoted. And just with the networking groups going on Zoom and doing webinars and things like that. So I think knowing and feeling those gut, intuition feelings that you have, and knowing when to pivot and just taking those risks when you need to take them, you should do it. It's all about being your own business owner and owning your own business. So if you want to learn more about us, if you want us to take a look at your website and give you some insight into what you've done great and what you need to work on, you can visit our website at qcamp.com. Or you can directly email me. My name's Michelle, spelled different, Michel, at qcamp.com. And I'm more than happy to just hop on like a 15-minute call with you and see what's going on within your business.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the Go for CEO channel. And hey, by the way, subscribe to the channel. Be a part of the Go for CEO community. Coming out with the book in the next 2 to 3 months. We're getting closer every day to finalizing the 4 steps of becoming the CEO of your own life and having a process to be able to master something that comes up in your life. So, real quick, I'll share with you the 4 attributes, right? It's just assess, align, take action, and be accountable, right? Those are 4 things. So I'll leave you a little magic there. But Michelle, thank you so much for being a part of it. Hey, visit Q Camp. If you're around the Naperville area, be a part of the organization and the movement that's going on and has been going on for so long. So thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you so much, John, for having me on today.